Hello, 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 Sure Babe listeners. This is episode 41. This is a special episode. I think I say that every time. I feel like it's a special episode whenever I get to record because I love it so much. But anyways, this is a talk I did, a speech I did at a MOPS group. MOPS is an organization called Mothers of Preschoolers, and they provide support and community for mothers that are raising their kids and that are, specifically in that young age group. It is so hard, you guys. We need groups like this. So I am honored that I got to go and speak to this group specifically about body image. I feel like body image is such a hot topic right now. We're talking about it, we're sharing about it, and it's amazing. And women are sharing their photos of their bodies, all shapes and sizes, all different stages of life and motherhood, postpartum, pregnant, you name it, we're sharing it. And I love that. However, I feel like sometimes as women, I know, because I know myself, that sometimes we learn new things like body image, positive body image, and we just make it one more thing we have to do or perfect. And we don't really tell women how to love their bodies. We just say, do it. So in this talk, I actually just talk all about my own personal story, and then I give the tools and techniques that have helped me the most in terms of loving my body and living in it. It's a term called embodiment. So I'm going to talk all about gratitude for your body and embodiment in this speech. And I wanted to let you know that I developed my own guide, and I combined all of the different technique and tools that I've learned that have helped me the most in this guide. It will be a link that you can download in the description of this podcast. It will also be available on my website, chrissypowers.com. So head there to check it out and download that embodiment guide and start living in your body today. So without further ado, I'm going to send you guys right into my speech at the Solana Beach MOPS group.
Thank you guys so much for having me. First off, the first thing I thought of when I walked in this room was like, there is so much beauty here. I'm just in awe of all of you guys. So body image is, I feel like it's becoming more of this talked about thing that's now amazing and wonderful, but also sometimes can leave us with questions of like, well, how do I just have positive body image? How do I love myself more? And it almost can feel like one more thing we have to perfect or be good at. So today I'm going to talk about a few tangible ways that you can actually love your body more. So I'm going to just start by sharing the story of how I found more gratitude. Actually, this summer it was something I just really dove into, was the work of gratitude. Because I grew up in a Christian home, and so I learned to be thankful for what I have and be grateful, but I didn't really know the power of what gratitude really could do for me. So I started diving into that. So let me just tell you that story. So I have a photo of myself that I keep in my kitchen hung up. It's about me at age 4. And I often stop and look at it because it reminds me of who I was. And it's probably the closest representation of my highest self, meaning like who God really created me to be in my purest form. And so when I look at this photo, I see my belly is protruding over my ruffled bikini. My nose is scrunched up, and I have the biggest smile on my face. I didn't care that my thighs touched. I didn't care that my belly looked over my pants in kindergarten. I could care less about those things. I cared that I could run with those legs. I cared that I could dive into the water and feel it ripple off my back. I cared that I could bite into a juicy piece of watermelon or lick an ice cream cone. I cared that my hands could slide into my mom's hand. I cared that my skin could feel the joy of my dad wrapping me up or throwing me in the air. I cared that I could have fun and experience life in my body because my body allowed me to experience the world. So I recently started seeing my body and calling my body a she. I'm personalizing my body now instead of calling it an it, because we do that a lot, right? We just say, it looks so bad on this, or we do that a lot. And so now I am calling my body a she, and it sounds kind of funny, but when I think about it, she has been my oldest friend. She has been my confidant in those lonely hours in my 20s where I thought I would never get married and have a family of my own. She has let me actually abuse her, beat her up with words of inadequacy starting in early adolescence. In college, I literally ran her into the ground. I made her run 17 miles on the weekends, only to reward her with a meal of beans and lettuce. And over the next 3 years, I punished her for gaining weight by binging and purging. In marriage, I trusted her to get pregnant when I wanted to have babies, and she got pregnant. I trusted her to grow 3 babies, and she did. And when she gave birth, I expected her to lose that baby weight immediately, because if she held onto any of that weight, I would shame her, because we are not one of those women who let herself go in motherhood. No, now that I'm a mom, I'm not a regular mom, I'm a cool mom. So definitely felt that pressure. So my last birth was one of those natural childbirths. I had my daughter without medication. That was really fun. Side note, I am not one of those women who thinks natural childbirth is magical. I hope all of you think it's magical, but for me, I'm in awe of what our bodies do in childbirth. But once my daughter Ruby was delivered, I was like, am I in heaven? I was like, no, not like peaceful, this is so great. This was like, did I actually die? Am I at the pearly gates? I literally thought I died. So do you guys like birth stories? Okay, do you want to hear a little bit of that one? I just love sharing it because I did it naturally, and I was like, okay, I had 2 epidurals before that that were much needed. But with Ruby, I was like, okay, this is my last baby. I'm really going to pamper myself, and I'm going to get a doula. So I hire a doula, and she's like in her 60s, so she kind of, for me, represented like peace and comfort, and she's done this a long time. She's going to get me through this. But I also like opened to that window, like if I want an epidural, I'm going to get that epidural, and no one's going to stop me. But I also just wanted support. So I had this wonderful doula. Her name's Ann Lee. She probably was one of your guys' doulas. You know her then. Okay, so I had to be induced with Ruby. She was like a week late, and or over a week. And so I go in, and we get the Pitocin, and everything's fine. And I'm like, just, breathing through the contractions. And then all of a sudden my water breaks, and like, stuff gets real super fast. My husband wakes up, and I'm like, it's happening. And so he like comes over, and my mom's there too. And Ann Lee the whole time was just there, like rubbing my back. And I also am telling this story because I feel like women's bodies, like it's changed the way that I view other women's bodies too. So the contractions just start coming on super hard. And I'm just like, I can't do this. And the last time they checked me, I was at a 6. So I like endured 4 of those contractions. And I was thinking in my brain, I was literally in my mind, not in my body. I was like, I can't do this anymore. I can't go I was thinking 6 to a 10, this could take forever. So I just cry, and I'm like, I need an epidural. And so they say, okay, who do you want in the room? You can only have one person. So I'm like, Ann Lee. Like, you two go. Mom, husband, go. And without a doubt, just wanted her. And so she's with me, and then in walks this tiny, and this, I don't say that to like, alienate any women, but this tiny little anesthesiologist. And I'm like, oh, she's gonna F this up. Like, I am like feeling so powerful and strong in this, and I'm like, I just know it. She's not going to do this right. So as she's trying to get the epidural in, I'm like, you have to hold still. And I'm like holding still, and I just couldn't anymore. And I'm literally burying my face in Ann Lee's bosom. And I'm like, they were just the most wonderful things to me in that moment. And it was just like, she was just so strong. And I'm like, I let out the loudest primal yell. And she tried twice to get the epidural in, and she couldn't. And Ann Lee just calls it off. And she's like, I said, I feel her head hitting the bed as I'm like trying to get an epidural. This isn't right. And so she calls it off. And then Ann Lee's like, glove up, this baby's coming. And she lays me down. And sure enough, the head's right there. And Ann Lee's like, don't push, Sam's not here. And I'm like, I don't care. Like, I don't care. Like, get this baby out of me. And so all of a sudden, like, they call Sam. He heard the cry, and they run back down, and he like runs into the room, and like all of a sudden Ruby just shoots out, and the midwife runs in right after him and catches her, and like that's how she was born. So. So I tell that story because I'm like, I've learned now to trust my body so much more. Like my body knew what to do, even though my mind was like, no, 6, I'm not out of 10 yet, I can't do this. So, but also, I just think of Ann Lee's body, and it was like, yeah, by the world's standards, it wasn't anything, to be in a magazine, but I loved that body, her body. It gave me so much strength and comfort in that moment. So yes, my body has done so much for me, and frankly, she's put up with so much. She's put up with constant abuse and criticism for probably 30 years. She's endured a couple eating disorders. She's ran 2 marathons, 6 half marathons, loved 1 man, birthed 3 children, made milk for 5 years and over that, taken me to different countries, painted beautiful art, taken a gazillion photos. She's written some pieces that I'm proud of. She's allowed me to share my voice on platforms, and she's endured sleepless nights and kept a household running. So I would say that she's a freaking badass, and I'd probably say that about all of you guys too. So that whole time I was writing that, I was just crying, just thinking about when I personalize my body and I make her a she, like a friend. I was like, how could I have put her through that? Like when you think about that, I'm like, wow, she's been there, she's done that. She even gave me 3 kids after having probably 5 years of abuse with an eating disorder. And yeah, she still continues to pump blood to my heart, oxygen in my lungs, allows me to move in life. And when I think about that, I'm overcome, obviously, with emotion and gratitude. So yeah, overall, my body has not failed me. And if you're in this room today, your body has not failed you either. And I know what you might be thinking, but you don't know me. I'm struggling with infertility, or I'm underweight, or I'm overweight, or I have cancer, or I have an autoimmune disorder. My body is, not my friend right now, but I just want to kind of wrap my arms around you and say, in empathy that I don't know your story, but if I had an hour, I would just sit and listen. So I don't want you guys to think what I am saying today is just one more thing you have to perfect. It's not. It's more of just like, I want to help you change the way that you view your body and give you practical tools to reframe any negative thinking that you have about your body. And I want you to leave here today knowing that there's so much hope that you can live more fully in your body and love it more than you ever have today. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how to do that with gratitude and how to understand what embodiment is, true embodiment, and how it's a game changer. Okay, so let's go into gratitude a little bit. When I think of gratitude now, I think of it as appreciating things on purpose and placing value on those things that we have in life and also the things that we want in life. That's with the word manifestation that you might be hearing more of. But specifically right now, I'm going to talk about like appreciating your body, the things that you guys have. So gratitude also for me is like putting on new glasses. And when I do that, I feel like I see the world more saturated, like how it's really supposed to be. As children, we are in awe and we marvel at the simplest things. Like my daughter can look out the window and stare out there undistracted for probably 15 minutes at like birds and leaves and trees. All of those things are things that we used to marvel at. They were just things that we would awe. The world was wondrous to us as children. And then something happens from childhood to adulthood. I would say it's probably stress, unmet expectations, trauma, all of those things that come into our world that jade us. They make us a little jaded, and we lose that practice that we had innately as children to be in awe and wondrous of the world and the things in our hands and our feet and everything like that. That it's like a baby just like, oh, where's your nose? Oh my gosh, they love it. It's like amazing when you think about it. So I want you guys to think about, what did you lose track of time doing as a child? Think about that right now. Write it down if you have a note, the note in front of you. Even if you want, share it with a person next to you. What did you lose track of time doing as a child? For me, it was Trolls, Barbies, babies, and Office, playing Office, which is basically things that drain me in life right now. But I could play with Trolls for hours in my mom's garden. Like, Sarah, you know it. I was in awe of Trolls and all of those things. It was just magical. So I'm going to help you guys get in touch with that inner child. Okay, so write that down. Think about it. What did you lose track of time doing? Okay, so now I want to talk about how to grow in gratitude in terms of your body. So everything that you want to change in your life has to start with awareness. You have to be aware of something to change it. So think about the things that you do when you pick apart yourself or when you compare yourself. God knows there is so much comparison that can happen, even in this room. We're women. We dress up for each other. We easily compare ourselves to one another. So what I would say the start would be to be aware of when I pick myself apart, or what am I looking at that I'm not liking, or what am I saying to myself? And then I label those things either in a journal if you have time later, but in my mind, I flag it. I kind of put a little red flag on it and I say, oh yeah, that's me. I'm telling myself I'm old, or I'm these wrinkles that I don't like, and I'm okay, I'm gonna flag that, because honestly, our brains are so powerful, but they have formed grooves for years. Have you guys ever heard of neurons that wired together? Meaning when you have a thought, the neuron kind of has that thought that sparks, and then it receives to a receptor. And so if you've had a negative thought about yourself for years, that thought has gone to that same receptor for years, basically making a groove in your brain. So in therapy, we, even in cognitive behavioral therapy, we come up with new positive thoughts that are more truthful, that you can believe about yourself, so that we interrupt that thought from receiving, or that neuron from firing and receiving the other receptor that's just that negative thought. So we come up with a new thought that's well, what about this? And it disrupts that thought, meaning it's going to break off that groove that has been so deeply woven or ingrained in your brain. So this is what we're doing. We're learning to change our thought pattern, to change our brain. And I know you guys probably already know, but our brains are neuroplastic, meaning they can change. So just because you've thought this your whole life doesn't mean that you can't be different. So okay, so then think about creating a gratitude journal and writing down a list of the things that you're thankful for in your body that don't have, they don't have to have anything to do with looks, but they can. They can be I really love my eyes, or, my eyebrows. I've always been told they're beautiful, and I love that, and I'm going to accept that. Write down the list of things that you love about your body, but also write down the list of things that your body does for you, that your body achieves for you. So things I'm grateful for my hands because I can wash these dishes. Or I'm grateful for my arms because I can pick up all of my kids. Or just simple things like that, that if we didn't have that, it would really make life so much harder. So another exercise you guys can do is write down all the areas of your life where you feel like you're lacking abundance of, or you want more abundance in that area. And underneath any negative statements in that journal entry, I would want you to cross it out and then write something positive underneath that. So for example, this would be I'm so tired, I'm not sleeping through the night because my daughter's teething, and we can't sleep train her because she lives in the same room as us, and I'm exhausted. So that would be my negative thought. I would cross that out, and underneath it, I would write, I'm so grateful for the strength I have to get through this challenging time, and I'm grateful for the tea and the coffee that help perk me up, and I'm grateful for the walk outside that gets my blood flowing, flowing, and for my friend that watched my child today so that I could take an hour to work or nap, or, I mean, who really does that now? But I'm grateful for this time to focus on myself. So that's how I would reframe that negative. It's not actually negative, it's just the true thought. But when I focus on that, it drains me of, where's the hope? It's just, I'm exhausted. But no, really, I'm like, okay, I am, but I'm so grateful that I am so strong and that I'm going to get through this. And so I want you guys to do that in your gratitude journals. If you guys start that, that's a really great way. And if you can get detailed about your body and the things that it has achieved for you, then that is one way that you can really change the way that you view it. Okay, so this would be a bonus, is find a picture of yourself as a little girl and write down what that little girl taught you and what you're grateful for. I actually started a Facebook group. You guys can all join it if you want. It's called Grow with Gratitude. And I did a whole series on different ways you can grow in your life in gratitude. And this was the most moving part for me, was I did that. I posted my picture of my 4-year-old girl and I wrote down what she taught me. She was like fearless and fun and adventurous and all of these things. And I asked other people too in the group, and the pictures and the words that women wrote underneath them of what their true inner child taught them was just beautiful. And so you can do that in the group if you want. But it's wonderful. You can just even share it with a friend. So, okay, so now I want to shift to talking about embodiment. This is something new I'm learning, so I'm not like a total expert on it, but I'm so excited about how it can transform your life, because I'm already seeing how it's helping me. So right now I want you to notice, how is your breath? Is it smooth? Is it relaxed? Is it shallow? Is it slightly pitched? Just notice how it is, because sometimes we don't even notice our breathing. So right now I want to teach you a way that you can come back into your body instantly. It's called diaphragmatic breathing. So especially if you're anxious, this is a really great tool to use. You put one hand on your diaphragm. You can do it right now. And then you put one hand right here on your chest, and you take a deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. And when you take a deep breath in, you notice that this hand goes up. And then when you take a deep breath out, you notice that this hand goes up. So you're literally trying, and it's not even that big of a movement, it's just tiny movements, but it's like this hand moving up and then this hand moving up. And that's how you know that you're breathing that deep breath into your whole body, and it instantly takes you back to your body. So at its core, embodiment is knowing and listening to the wisdom of your body, the wisdom that God has put in us, and the wisdom that your body has acquired thus far in life. So embodiment is coming back into the body, and it's the process of becoming alive to the signals of your body. It's the full human experience. I mean, you probably can think of a time right now where you felt truly alive and you felt so good. You were probably in your body, not just in your head, because most of us just live, I think, so much in our heads that we are outside of our bodies. And we live in that world sometimes where our brains are full of distorted thinking that really isn't true. Like, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not thin enough, I'm not fit enough, healthy enough, young enough, smart enough, good enough. I mean, you name it. That's where we live. So childhood is so fun because you naturally integrate your mind, body, and your spirit. You're just a child, so you haven't had any much outside influence to tell you that you're not anything but perfect. So that's why childhood is so fun. But as adults, we can get back to that if we practice this. You're exactly who you're meant to be as a child. And guess what? You're exactly who you're meant to be today. You just have to get back to that little girl, that in touch with who she was always meant to be. Sometimes we disassociate, meaning we come out of our bodies and we live in our heads, or we live in the future for many reasons. Stress, traumatic experiences, managing, minimizing emotions. That's all ways that we disassociate, which actually God did create our bodies to sometimes do that, because things are too traumatic that if you were to stay in your body and feel it, it would just be overwhelming, too overwhelming. So it's great that God actually provided that instinct in us to sometimes not always be able to be in our bodies. But I think that we have so many distractions today that we just naturally kind of stay outside of it. And then we think, oh, I need to be like that, or okay, this is just what I need now to change and to be different. But I really do believe that it's time for you guys to come back to you, come back to your body, to really love her and to live fully now in your body. And we can do this in many ways. It's actually your divine right as a daughter of the King to love your body, to fully live in your body. Like, that is what he wanted for us all along. So here's another question. How do you experience your body? Write that down. I don't know if I put it on the handout, but somewhere in there, write down how you experience your body today. And then that's just part of the awareness of coming back to the now and how you're experiencing it. You can be totally honest how your relationship is with your body today. And if anybody wants to share, they totally can. If anybody wants to be vulnerable. But you don't have to be. Because, I think if we wanted to get really detailed, we could go into like cycles and all that fun stuff, because literally throughout the month, you can experience your body in a totally different way, and that's okay, Okay, so what does the body tell us? Our bodies are so good at telling us stuff. We're just not good at listening to them. What has your body told you lately? Just think about that. Mine lately has been telling me I need more rest and I need to be in nature. And I know that because of how I feel when I give into that desire. But I want to tell you an example of when I was so disembodied. And I was not listening to my body. It's a funny story. Okay, so it was after Ruby was born. I just told you that birth story. So it was, a little over a year ago. And I just had her. And I was invited to this event in Cincinnati to work with Pampers. And I was like, oh my gosh, like Pampers wants to work with me. I cannot say no. So I was like, I am going. So I had just had her. She was 3 weeks old. And I packed her up and I flew to Cincinnati with my newborn. And it was actually like in my mind, like it was going to be amazing, because often things look amazing in my mind and they're not really in real life. But I was like, okay, I have 2 kids at home, being in a hotel alone with my daughter, my baby. That sounds amazing, like just by myself. So I was like, I'm going to do this. And the trip was fine. I don't regret it. But on the way home, I'm kind of a nervous flyer, which was like recent in my life, like motherhood and anxiety, all that stuff. So I get on the plane. My dad upgraded me because he knows I'm a nervous flyer. And so he upgraded my ticket to first class, which was so sweet. So I'm sitting in first class with my newborn wrapped on me, and plane takes off, and I'm sitting next to this beautiful businesswoman. She just wants to read her Kindle. And all of a sudden, things just get a little shakier, and I'm like, I'm okay, are we fine? Am I okay? They give you wine, so I'm drinking my wine, and all of a sudden, it gets a little more shaky, and I'm just okay. And I can't help it when I'm anxious on a plane. I just reach out to the person next to me and I hold their hand. And I'm that's probably so creepy, but I just I turn to her and I'm is this normal? And she's like, oh yeah, this is totally normal. Like, I fly this all the time. Just look at the flight attendants. Like, their faces are fine. And I'm looking at them and I'm like, I literally turn into Kristen Wiig in Bridesmaids on the airplane. And I'm like, there's a colonial woman on the wing and she's turning butter and there's something they're not telling us. And so I literally turn into that woman. And I'm like, so I'm like looking at this woman that's like, she's telling me it's okay. She's like, and I like order another glass of wine, and then the tears just start falling because I'm so anxious. I'm so in my head. And she looks at me and she's like, I don't think the wine is helping. And I look at her and I'm like, I know it's not. So anyways, I look at that experience as just one example of me just not listening to my body. I just had a baby 3 weeks and I thought I could do this. And I did, but my body showed me after, like, hey, fire alarm's going off. Rest. You're literally 3 weeks postpartum. Rest. So let's talk about how we can heal in this and how we can start loving our bodies and claim that birthright of daughters of the King. I'm going to talk a little bit about mindfulness, and then we're going to do a meditation, if that's okay with you guys. When do you feel alive in your body? And when do you feel shut down? And what feels good to your body? Those are all things that you should be mindful of. You can note that in your brain. You can journal about it right now if you want. You can journal about it later. But mindfulness is so key in knowing what actually feels good to you. Like maybe running doesn't feel good to you anymore. Like lately, I've been a runner pretty much my whole life, but I'm like, oh, my knees are hurting now. And I'm like, okay, well, my body's telling me to stop and walk right now. Like, okay, it's okay to walk, Chrissy. You don't have to just like plow through every time. So being mindful of what my body's actually feeling and when it feels alive is so key. Also, I do this other thing called nonlinear movement, which is amazing. You guys can Google it, YouTube it. But really all that it is putting on a song that has no words and just letting your body move and come, like whatever comes up. I mean, you could start crying, but literally when I have like feeling like negative energy in me or like, negative thoughts, such a good way to come back to your body. And it's just so freeing. Sometimes I just start in like downward dog or child's pose and I just move and just let my body do what it needs to do. And so much can move out through that process. And then lastly, I want to get you guys in touch with that highest self, that inner child. So we're going to do a little meditation. And whenever you guys are ready, I just want you guys to close your eyes and get comfortable. And this is totally something you guys can do on your own. Just getting back into touch with God, touch with who you are. So I'm going to walk you through to a safe place. I want you guys to just take a deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. Just letting go of all the thoughts of the to-dos and drop-offs and pickups and bills, just letting go of those thoughts. And I want you to imagine that there's a golden white light of protection and relaxation that starts to shine on you from the top of your head, and everything it touches, it relaxes. So imagine that white light moves down over your forehead and your eyes, around your ears, nose, mouth, chin, and jaw, and just releases any tension that you might hold there. And then imagine it moving down your neck and over your shoulders, down your back and your arms, and then down through your chest and your stomach, and just mentally scan your body and notice if there's any areas of tension or tightness. And imagine that it moves to those areas and just smooths it out. And then imagine that it moves down through your legs over your knees, through your calves, over your ankles, through the arches of your feet to the tips of your toes. It just relaxes your entire body. And now I want you to think of a place you can go to where you feel totally safe and calm. It can be real or imagined. It could be a place you've been to or a place you want to go to. I want you to imagine this place that was created just for you. And imagine all the tiny details you see in this place. What do the colors look like? What do you see in this place? And then what do you hear in this place? Maybe birds are chirping or waves are crashing. Maybe your favorite song is playing. What do you hear in this place? And then what do you smell in this place? Maybe it's your favorite flower. Maybe it's your favorite scent, or the fresh cut grass, or what do you smell in this place? And then lastly, what do you feel in this place? Maybe the sun is on your face, or maybe you're wrapped up in a cozy blanket. What do you feel in this place? And now I want you to imagine that that little girl is with you too. So imagine yourself, whatever age you felt like you were a little girl, where you felt just the freest, most pure form of yourself. Imagine that she's there with you. And now I want you to imagine that Jesus comes into the picture. And he's with you too. And whatever happens is totally fine. Just imagine that he's there with you. And with your little girl, what does Jesus say? What does he do? What do you guys all do together? Maybe he throws you up in the air. Maybe he's playing with that little girl. So just take a few moments right now to be in this place, hearing from Jesus, what he says about you, what you say to him maybe. Just take a few moments here. And as much as we want to live in this world, I want you to take a few deep breaths in through your nose and out through your mouth, and coming back to the room and opening your eyes whenever you're ready. Just wiggle your fingers and toes. Okay, so that is my favorite way to actually hear from God, because I feel like it silences my thoughts and it gets me in touch with my body and it gets me in touch with the truth. And so you guys can do that on your own anytime you want to. I highly suggest journaling about it. I think there's a little spot on the sheet, I gave you a whole other sheet where you can write down like the reaction to that, because I really feel like that is truth. If you're seeking truth, when you silence your mind and you invite Jesus to come into it and you listen to what he says and what you guys do together, it's like that is him, literally. So in closing, I want you guys to think about what has your body achieved for you? And then also what you want to achieve in it. You know, maybe it is like I want to run a marathon or do a triathlon or whatever. So think about that. And I want you guys to then live in that world where it's like my body has achieved so much for me instead of trying to change it and mold it to be like someone else's. So just enjoy those deep breaths. Do that meditation as much as you guys want to, and just start enjoying your body today.
All right, so I hope you guys liked that talk. I'm so glad I could share it with you guys here. I hope that it gave you guys a new perspective how you can view your body of actually what it does for you instead of how it looks. And then in turn, appreciate how your body looks because it's unique. It's uniquely yours and no one is like you. And you were made this way for a purpose. So I really hope that encouraged you today. If you would like, there's a link in the description of this podcast. It will also be on my blog, Chrissy Powers, as well, to my guide to embodiment. It just has a couple of the exercises and techniques that I use that helped me the most in terms of getting into my body, living in it, and loving it. So I hope you guys download that. And as always, reach out to me on Instagram at Chrissy J. Powers. Hashtag SureBabe Podcast, or tag me and let me know what's resonating with you. And I always love hearing from you guys. Thank you so much. So much grace and gratitude to you.